Change is like death. We experience many deaths throughout the course of our lives because that's what change is. There are many deaths in this life. And the life that we live is all about contrast. It's all about duality, polarities, this or that, true, false, black and white, feminine, masculine, yin, yang, two halves of a whole to show you where the imbalance is. Without contrast, we wouldn't know how to navigate life. What we like versus what we dislike. The ease versus the dis-ease. Lean into it. When you notice you are feeling something extreme, whether it be joy or grief and sadness, anger, celebrating, all of it is relevant. And it's showing you where you're at in your life, energetically, and everything that shows up to you in that moment, as well as you're available to what shows up to you. We're all navigating what our next step is. We're all technically headed in the same direction, to the same destination, but we've chosen different paths. We've chosen to have different experiences, and it will look so different to you and me, but ultimately we will arrive at the same destination in the end. When I was a little girl, I used to think life is like a maze where the memory of the past and everything we knew before was taken, erased. Let's see if we can find our way back to it. Can we remember who we were before we were born of this earth? You hear of these young children, they remember their past lives up to a certain age. They still have that deep memory and they can articulate it and express it. And people dismiss it. It wasn't until recently you started hearing stories like, wow, this young child was able to put the dots together, and they did the research, and it turned out everything they were saying was true. Never dismiss what a child says. A child has no reason to lie until you teach it. A child will tell you truth because that's all they know. Until man gets a hold of us and we become conditioned, programmed into this life. This is why children are so sacred. Children are so wise when they come into this life. Haven't you ever looked at a child? It's not in their nature to lie to you. It is in their nature to tell truth, to be curious, to explore, to be creative, and not think of the consequences or the restrictions or the limitations. No, that's actually conditioned and programmed into us, socially engineered. At a certain point in our life, because the Jesuits said, give me a child until the age of 7 and I will show you the man. We've all had to go through the indoctrination cycle in some way, shape, or form. Some more than others, some less than others. Some more extreme, some with more freedom. We don't even realize how much it has affected our waking life, our existence on this planet. Some may say this is hell. Some may say this is a prison planet. But this life is a gift. We've been distracted from the gift that we have. Over this past year, and the reason I titled this, change is like death. Life is like death too if you're not living. But change is like death because we experience these mini deaths when something changes, whether small, whether micro, macro, or major, every change that we experience is the mourning of the past, of the familiar. See, when we grieve someone, when someone we know dies, we mourn everything that we're going to miss about them. We're sad we're not going to get to speak to them again. We're not going to be able to see them. We're not ever going to be able to hang out with them again. It's a natural process. And nobody can tell you how long that grieving process is going to take for you. It's individual, it's unique. And only we can go through it for ourselves. So when we go through these changes in life, no matter how small or major life changes like birth, death, divorce, marriage, a great promotion in your work, loss of work, all of it's relevant, because what happens with any change, small or large, you have to remember and go over and grieve and mourn the loss of what you knew and were habituated to. So over the past year and a half, you're seeing humanity grieving the past, the death of it, the rebirthing of you individually and all of humanity as a whole. I know this because I sit with it myself. So I know what is true for me must be true for many others. And I also know that this is a collective death and rebirth process, that we are all going through the metamorphosis. And we've had to go through the goo. And I feel like we're coming through and we're about to emerge like the butterfly. But that's up to each individual, whether or not you are going to have the strength, the courage to move your wings, to gain the strength to emerge from that chrysalis. You've had a year and a half to sit in your shit. Have you been doing the work? Have you been confronting your past? What wasn't working? What was? Yeah, the familiar, it's great, you know. Oh, we want things to go back to the way they were, but that wasn't working. You have to admit that. The only people who want to go back to that are the ones addicted to abuse, are the ones who are addicted to the trauma and the drama and the familiar. Because the only reason people go back to abusive relationships is because that's all they know. That's familiar and comfortable because it's predictable. That doesn't make it healthy. It only takes constituting 3 of the basic human needs, and there's 5 of them, to constitute an addiction. So when you satisfy 3 of the 5 basic human needs, you created an addiction. It can be a healthy one. It can be an unhealthy one. It can be promoting or demoting. So over the past year and a half, we've had this shift over to technology. Many people who didn't even work with computers nearly as much were forced to work from home, to have to Zoom, to have to rely upon their devices, to have to deal with people through a medium, channels. It's all part of the program, people. I know because I'm a computer operator, computer systems engineer in my old world. So to me, I see how the programming works just like a computer, and how influential technology has become upon us as humans. One of the first jobs that I was offered coming out of the military was predictive data, was learning your behavior. And I got out in 2003. So to know this, that they were already working on predicting what you would buy, what your patterns were, how you behave, what your emotions were around something, boy, we've come a long way. And that technology is significantly more advanced than we have access to or that has been revealed to us. At least 25 to 30 years in advance of what we know. They've been modifying the weather since the 50s, and maybe even longer for all we know, from other means. If we want to go down that rabbit hole, it's a totally different conversation. But when we come back to change is like death, this past year, having to go through this shift into a new way of doing things, that in itself was a major life change for many. I know in the yoga studio that I teach, we were teaching from home via Zoom, via the Facebook and the social media, and that was our lifeline. That was our connection. How crazy is that? That we became so dependent upon the technology out of desperation, out of means of connection, out of the inability to meet in person. It didn't stop us. Let's get something clear. We chose to opt out of the human engagement in our interaction versus technology. We allowed technology to take the place of one another. We've given external forces our power, which is something innate within us. They cannot take your power without your permission. Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. Power is something innate within you. Force is the appearance of power, but it requires taking versus receiving. And force always loses out in the end. So with this technology, there's a force behind it that put us in that situation. Some of it was an internal choice, but it was influenced from the external. Everything we do is influenced. You may not think you're influenced. You may think you have free will, but how much of it was influenced from subliminal messaging and direct in your face messaging? You hear something enough times and you will subscribe to it. You will adopt it as your own belief. That's just part of psychology, and that's a known fact. Nobody has to tell you that. You can research that. You can look it up, and I encourage you, you should do your own research. Never expect that anything I tell you is true until you yourself have looked it up. When I speak from my personal experience, my personal life experience, what I have learned through my life experiences. I don't give you opinion. I give you examples of what has happened for me, with me, what I felt, what I have spidey sense tapped into, because you got to tune into your five senses. So as I was driving home, I was reflecting upon this. I'm like going, wow, it's like being a child and learning all over again. Because now we went into the technology dependency over the past year and a half. And now people are really hyper addicted and sensitive to technology and being tuned in and fear of missing out. And this whole idea that I have to know. FOMO. I'm afraid if I don't have the information, I won't know. But do you know that this is such a small little box and that it's limited in information? It's so limited and it is so hyper fixated. And again, it's meant to influence you. When you see something on the news, when you see something through your feed on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media platform you choose, that's just a small, like infinitesimal, tiny little aspect of life. But it gets blown up. So the more someone shares something, the more energy it's getting fed. Because where attention goes, energy flows. And so when you are hyper fixated on the same story and everybody's joining in on the party of the FJB or the, whatever it is, you're feeding that. Is that healthy? I personally don't think so. And I've had to sit with that myself. I've actually chosen to disengage even more. And that when you're using the same words you were indoctrinated with from the time you were born, the indoctrination, the system, has taught you the same spells, the same words, that if you're not choosing your words carefully enough, if you're not aware of your own thoughts and the mindset and the beliefs and the patterns and the habits that even you have, those are running the show. So when you use certain words, you're continuing to cast the same spell that's been cast over you. You're reinforcing your own mental imprisonment. Govern, to rule over, meant, the mind. All of it. When you learn the definitions, when you actually care enough to pay attention and be mindful of the speech, the words, because what comes out of your mouth has energy, it has vibration. So when we cast the spell with the words that we choose, we're carrying forth an energy, and that energy will attract, and it will grow, whether it's conscious or unconscious, scattered or focused, intentional or unintentional. It still is effectual. So casting the spell with the words that we use, what are you creating? What are you manifesting? We have the 20th anniversary coming up on Saturday. I will be disengaging, and here's why. Because I'm not in the mindset of the doom and the gloom, and I refuse to entertain or be entertained the notion that something big, bad, and ugly is going to happen. Because when you put your attention there and your energy flows there, then you are part of the problem, not the solution. When you think you're working for something, sometimes you're actually creating it just as much. If you're in the fight mode, that is actually reinforcing what you're fighting, because it's giving energy, it's giving power, it's depleting you of your life force and handing it over to theirs. Whatever it is you think you're fighting, the only way to win the game is to walk away. The only way to really truly win is to be neutral and not allow the triggers within you. I know this takes a lot of work and a lot of humility and humble mindfulness. Because if you've been doing the work over this past year, you would have recognized that all those things that caught you in your emotional states, angry, sad, depressed, anxious, whatever emotion, those are the things that run the show. And that's what they feed off of to manipulate, to influence you. Because when you're emotional, you become irrational, and that's when you're easiest to target and to catch off guard. Because you're caught off guard by your own emotions, other people can take advantage of that. So change is like death. Over this past year, I know a lot of people don't realize they've been in and out of these funks. They've been depressed. They've been anxious. They don't know what's going on. They're freaking out. And the reason is because we're all going through the mourning of our past. The old is never coming back. That the things that we had before, or the way that we conducted our lives, is never going to be the way they were before. So we have to be humble and really take a step back and be kind on our own mind. Give yourself credit, you're still here. There's a lot of people who couldn't handle this past year. And that breaks my heart, that there's been more suicides over what has transpired. To me, that's the crimes against humanity. Isolating people who needed people the most. That when someone feels abandoned, rejected, for whatever cause, for whatever excuse, we are human first. And to be a good human also recognizes that humans need to be in unity. That's what makes humanity. And that when we're divided, whatever it is, we're not whole. Again, when we're divided, we're not whole. That's inside and collectively. This is where humanity itself is going through a massive rebirth. It's happening on individual levels. Each one of us is going through it. We're going through our death process and our rebirthing. And just like the chrysalis, some of us are still in the muck. Some of us are still ooey gooey inside. And that's okay. I really encourage you to be gentle with yourselves, to really have compassion, to seek out ways to do things that bring you back to your childlike nature. Go out in nature, take walks, call that friend that you miss. Either have the conversation or get together in person. We need one another. We need each other more than ever before right now. And if anything, don't let anything outside of you come between you and your family, your friends. If they're so caught up in anger and toxicity that they can't find common ground with you, all you got to do is work on you and just be kind and try to stay neutral. Because when you lower your vibration, lower yourself, and go back to old triggers and karmic patterns of reacting as opposed to responding, coming from the heart as opposed to the mind, because the mind always wants to be right. It doesn't necessarily want to be happy. The heart's sitting here going, hey, listen, we can still find love in this moment, even if we don't agree. Even if somebody is so caught in their emotions, they're triggered and they're spewing it out, because that's what happens when you're under pressure. When you're going through the metamorphosis, when you are squeezed in that chrysalis, eventually the ooey gooey is going to want to come out, but not until it comes back to wholeness as the caterpillar transforms into the butterfly. So everybody's just like the pressure of a diamond is getting squeezed really hard over this past year and a half. It's part of this death, rebirth, metamorphosis. That in order to be the butterfly, to emerge with strong wings, you have to, forced or not, voluntarily or involuntarily, you have to still mourn what is no longer. Honor it, cherish it, celebrate it. We don't do that enough. Often we just think, oh, well, I'll get over it. I have to just push through. That was all my life. And for me, looking around at humanity, I have had to sit with, and it only came to my attention at the beginning of this year, that holy crap, for over 13 years, I have been rebirthing myself. That when I was blacklisted and I lost my job because of a situation that was totally inhumane, and it was a toxic work environment, my old mind was all about being right. I wanted to seek justice. It wasn't right. But that was the universe taking care of me at the time, and I didn't see it. Because that's what happens. In retrospect, you look back, you learn, you reflect. You go, wow, okay, now I see why that happened the way it did. It really sucked. But boy, what a celebration I can have now. Still trying to find my way. I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't have all the answers. But that's a beauty. None of us do. And don't even try to fake the funk and act like you do. We're all human. We are all figuring this out as we go. I don't have a clue. Hey, who knows? Maybe blockchain's the answer. I don't think so. Because to me, that's like, I'm an IT person. I see that and go, wait a minute, what if technology disappeared? What if the grid was cut out? What if we had to go back to the old ways when we didn't have cell phones with all the data, these smartphones that aren't quite that smart, by the way? What if we had to start over? What would you do? How would you handle it? Humans are pretty resourceful when put in a position to have to figure it out, aren't they? You figured it out this past year, right? And if you didn't, was it because you were lazy about it? Did you not get enough of a challenge? Because here's the thing. Each person will take action to the degree that they find it important enough to take action. If you are coddled, if you are spoiled to the point where you've had everything done for you, you've never had to work hard in your life, you've never actually had to fend for your own, and someone's always been there to take care of you, I bet this year was really tough. Maybe it still will be, because you still haven't stepped up to the plate. You still haven't taken personal responsibility for yourself. I know I've had to figure it out even from the point when I lost my job 13 and a half years ago. That I had to recreate myself. I had to find my way, and yoga was the way. Not right away. First, I had to go through some programs. I did Date with Destiny with Anthony Robbins. I was like, holy crap, there's some patterns I need to work on here. I know it starts within me. I knew it was something within me. I got my Reiki master training in 2009, and someone handed me a book and said, you should read this. And it was called Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins, and that really blew my mind. That book was really one of the biggest ones. The Date with Destiny and Power versus Force were two of the most important things that really changed my vibration, my focus, my impact, my path. Because I saw patterns in my own personal relationship, and I saw patterns within my family, and I was like, wow, okay, now I'm seeing it clearer. The more clearer you see something, the more you can actually make changes, because choice is your superpower. It's the awareness that you need to have first. But nobody can hold your hand to make changes that come with that awareness. You can have awareness and information, you can hoard it all, but if you don't do anything with it, it just gets wasted. And you sit there. This is an old term, like a hand gesture. I know Bob will say something in there. An Italian thing, the gesticulation, hand signatures and languaging. You're left empty-handed, grasping for nothing, looking for something. If you haven't been taking care of yourself and been accountable to your own life, nobody's going to save you, baby. It's up to you to take care of you. And yes, you might be lucky that you have some people around you, but there's only so much people will take care of another person who isn't pulling their weight too. I know. I've had to let some people go in my life as well. And that's because it's a question of whether or not you are living in the victimhood mentality, you are in a survival mindset, or are you the victor with a thriving mindset? It's a huge flip of the switch. But again, we need contrast, and that's what this life is all about, the dualities, the polarities. If you don't have contrast, you can't know this works, that doesn't. I'm going to go in the direction of what works, right? So when we have different emotions and we're swinging on the pendulum of life, it's like, oh, look, I'm way over here. Let's try to bring it back to the neutral ground. Let's try to be present in the moment. Because emotions, like the ocean, waves, they take us out of the moment. Believe it or not, that's the case. But people think, well, in this moment, this is what I feel. Yes, but it's starting up in your head. It's starting up in your mind. The only reason you feel emotion is because of a trigger, good or bad. Oh my gosh, I'm having this amazing experience. It's like, it should be a wellspring of a sensation in your body of joy. But when the mind's involved, that's when you're not necessarily present. But sit with that, because everybody is going to have to sit with themselves. I can tell you all sorts of stuff, but it's you who has to have the personal experience. So it's great to know things, but have you integrated them? Has it become wisdom through your personal experience? That's why we say when we get older, we get wiser. And so when we do go through major life changes and we are aware of it, we can be more gentle with ourselves, kinder on our bodies, our minds, whatever's going on. Oh, that's right. I'm moving. I'm in the middle of a move. I'm like overwhelmed. Okay, just breathe. Most important thing you'll ever do is just breathe. And the power of your voice is very powerful for changing vibration of your body too. So when you inhale, everybody inhale together with me. When you exhale, just sigh it out, because the vibration, the sound of your own voice, is soothing to your own mind, as is the sound of your breath. It's all riding the same wave. So inhale. Because as you inhale and you fill your body and you enliven your cells, and then you exhale and you vibrate with the sigh, with the sound, that's felt within and without your body. And that brings an extra healing possibility for you. Play with it. Play with it. It's all like, have the mind of a child, like a beginner's mind. Be curious, play, lean in, find the joy. That's what this life is about. Can you find your joy? Can you reclaim that joy? Because everything else is distraction and noise. If you're so fixated on what's going on over there, or even just constantly on your phone trying to figure out what's the latest news, what's going on, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, henny penny, 1984, you know? Being military and knowing stuff makes me go, wait a minute here. Are we really hearing the truth? Because to me, it sounds like a distraction. Like, you know, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Because when you don't pay attention to what's really going on within you, you're being taken away from. Your power is being hijacked. Your energy is being harvested. Because when you are in FOMO, you are in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, you're in a stress response, you're trauma-based, drama is arising, you're giving it away. We need to be more focused on where our joy is. How can we live our lives more powerfully, more effectively with our fellow humans? How can we effectively come through this rebirthing, rejuvenated, revived, more alive, as opposed to depleted and destroyed and defeated by the powers that be, which I cannot stand when people say that. Let me tell you why, because that's, again, giving away your power. Power is within, force is outside. Force is the giving appearance that these people have power over you, implying it. But it's only by your participation and permission that it actually even exists. I call it the system. It's the matrix. When you say the powers that be, you're implying somebody has authority over you. You are more powerful than you give yourself credit. And that's where we all need to reclaim ourselves. So no matter what is going on in the world, we are all coming through this like the birth canal. We're coming through a major life change right now, each and every one of us. And so we have to be kind on ourselves as well as others. You see people out there just completely flipping out and freaking out. It's because they're being squeezed and they don't even realize they're coming through that birth canal. They're coming through becoming the diamond, the coal with the pressure on it. That the more toxicity within you, the more it's going to be squeezed out. Like, this to me is divine. And people may not like it, but you're not choosing any other way but to have it squeezed out of you. So when the antagonist shows up to you and you feel triggered or upset, don't get upset with them. All they're doing is being the catalyst to your healing. They're showing up to you at the level at which you're at. If you are looking to defend yourself or trying to avoid attack, the attacker will show up to you. I know this for personal experience. That draws that energy to you. If you are in awareness of what's going on, they're truly just simply showing up to you to show you how to grow, how to evolve. Like, this is your imbalance. Here's your duality. Here's your contrast. I'm showing up to attack you. Are you going to fight back? Are you going to stand your ground? Are you going to find a neutral way to just say, oh, I see you, Satan, not today. Don't let the devil win. When you're idle, that's when the devil does his work. When you're ignorant to your own sensations, your own inner truth, your own soul, your heart is speaking. When you're ignorant, ignoring what's going on, you're playing into the hands of the devil. Sit with that one for a moment. The devil does its deeds in the idle of minds. So if you're just sitting around waiting for someone else to show up and save you, how's that working for you? Without your participation, can't win. That's why I say walk away. When you fight it or you go and comply with it, you're feeding it. It's the same energy. They're just opposites ends of the spectrum. But see, they have convinced and indoctrinated and programmed people into thinking you need to choose a side. You need to pick this or that. No, you don't. You don't have to even participate in the game. Because when you know the game, you know the truth of how they play it. You can choose to play or not. But if you do choose to play, know how to play. If you're ignorant of the rules of the game, you're implicit, you're complicit in compliance. You're giving away your power and don't even know it. And when you don't know your own rights and your own God sovereign self, you will be taken advantage of. Like the post I just posted. You can only be deceived to which you've been deceiving yourself. Nobody can deceive you if you are in awareness of yourself. People only show up to show you where you're at. That's why they're just being a mirror. So think about it. You're going through a major life change over this past year. Be kind and gentle with yourself. This isn't for the weak of heart or mind. It's for you to be, oh, wow, look, I'm a human having a human experience. And I've just lost everything I've ever known. And so now I have to find a new way and I have to navigate these waters, turbulent or not. Can you ride the waves? Can you come into your knowing? Can you tap into your five senses and tap into your intuition and just be guided? Surrender to the not knowing instead of running to the familiar that it was toxic to begin with. Because that's just an abusive relationship and nobody needs to be in that situation. That's Stockholm Syndrome. That's defending your abuser. That's continuing a cycle. That's karmic. See, when you continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's a karmic cycle. The only way to break the karmic cycle is to stop, is to recognize the pattern and change it. It doesn't happen overnight. It just takes time, and just like courage and le coeur, the muscle needs to be strengthened. So you got to do it over and over again to become a new habit. But remember, you have to mourn. You have to mourn the old, Oh my gosh, I'm sad that I can't travel. I was going to do my retreats in Italy this year. I had all sorts of plans. Oh well, I'm going to have to find new ways to go around and do things. We all have to find things that are going to work for us. We have to create the new. We're not here to continue trying to fix a system that's broke. That's the crazy. That's the crazy. So you have to realize you've been living an illusion. This is what I've been going through. And as I was driving home thinking about it, I'm like, holy crap, 13 and a half years, that's a long time to really come through a major life change and see how much that affected me and how much I miss aspects of those lives. And, I miss the fact that I used to live the European lifestyle and speak a different language and get exposed to things that bring my heart and soul joy. But without that experience, without having gone through what I've gone through, I wouldn't recognize what we're going through right now. Everything in my life has prepared me for this. I've known since I was a little girl. My mother's talked about it since I was young in the 80s. God rest her soul. She, what is beautiful is that my mom, she knew. She's new. And I am so grateful to have had a mother in the know, in awareness, because she prepared me and my sisters. Now, I'm not saying it made it easier, because we also challenged our mother very much. Really? We would have conversations like, oh my God, we'd roll our eyes. And then we get older, and after she passed a couple of years ago, we have conversations now like, oh, I wish she was still alive, because these are the conversations she'd have answers for. These are the things she could shed more light on, because she was in such awareness. And it's okay. It's okay, because we find out what we need to find out. We become more attuned through our experiences. Because we are like this beautiful, like, instrument, and we all need to be tuned in and tuned up for our soul to rise and to sing and to shine. So this is why this is so important, because our bodies and our minds, our spirit, our breath, our soul, it's all what needs to be brought back together to be whole. We've been hijacked. We've been picked apart. We've been fragmented through disempowerment from the time we're born with original sin, which is a bunch of bullshit. And then conditioned into this idea that we always have to prove ourselves, that we're still working through trauma responses. We're still working through the whole idea that I'm in the defense because I don't even feel worthy. To a system that has not proven itself worthy, that is corrupt and continues to operate in tyrannical overreach. Like, that's some toxic shit. But it's all a reflection for us to recognize that's within us. So you can't turn around and separate yourself from the situation we're in. And if you do, then you're not getting the whole picture. Because what we see out there, where our attention goes and we're focused on, what we were being, like I said, attention is a form of energy. So where attention goes, the energy flows. But it's also to reflect back to you what you have to work on within. Again, as within, so without. Go within and heal so you don't go without. The more you heal within yourself, you're healing us all. That's what humanity's all about, and the rebirth we're going through. That this past year was to put everyone in their cocoon, to go through the metamorphosis, to come through the womb, the birth canal, and to see what beautiful specimens of humans you can be. Each and every one of us is extremely important to the existence of this planet, to one another, to humanity as a whole. That this is an up-leveling for Source, for universe, for God, through us. Individually, when we level up, whoa, baby, this is a beautiful time. And it is time to shine. So when someone catches you off guard, you get triggered by your emotions and your old wounds. Be gentle with yourself and have compassion for yourself. Because when you start to learn, to harvest, to cultivate that nurturing within yourself, finding compassion for yourself, you can extend that to another. When you don't react and respond to someone else, you have just shifted something in the karmic line for you, all of your family, your lineage, yourself, all of us. Humanity rises with each person that levels up and shows up to the higher self within. Instead of reacting to the person that set you off, that just basically told you and showed you what wound it is you still have to heal yourself. Because when they triggered you, it was because within you something was saying, I'm ready, I just need that one person to pull it out of me. Never shoot the messenger, because they're part of the message and your gift and your blessing without a bow. So when they pull that out of you, like fishing it out, it may be stinging like hell. It may suck. But guess what? You always come out better on the other side. And even if you do react and you walk away with buyer's remorse of, oh my gosh, I wish I hadn't have said this. I wish I hadn't have said that. I wish I would have handled it better. It's okay, because when you know better, you can do better. But in that moment, if you're able to recognize that you didn't handle it well, you also are able to recognize that there was something there for you. And all they did was serve it up on a silver platter. Most people will shoot the messenger, will play the victim because they want to be right, because that's their head, their ego, instead of be happy in their heart. If you're looking to defend yourself, the attacker will find you. That's all that really is. It's a great example. When you feel like someone's done something to you, you're just playing into a victimhood story. But just being in awareness, like, how am I playing the victim? Like, ask yourself. Be gentle about it too, because nobody wants to be beaten up, and you shouldn't be beating yourself up about the fact that, oh my gosh, here I am playing the victim because someone's done something to me. What role did I play? And what does that stem from? What story am I repeating? Because that's all it is. And we're in Mercury shadow time, so this is a re-time. This is a put RE in front of everything. Don't do anything new. You're being rebirthed, and humanity is about to come through that birth canal. Now the question is, have you been doing the work to support it? That's my major message right now, and that's what I've been sitting with. And that idea that all these illusions that we're coming face to face with, many of us didn't even realize existed. Some of us in this past year, some of us for a very long time. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. The fact of the matter is you're waking up to it. But just like a child, you have to learn to walk all over again. You have to find your way like a newborn. Coming into this new, try not to bring the baggage of the old with you. That's only going to muddy the waters. It's a fresh start. It may not look so clean on the way out, but you'll clean up nicely when you're done. Be willing to go through that icky, sticky, yucky, because that is the beauty of the process. And it should all be celebrated. All of it. You're being rebirthed, and so is humanity. What a beautiful time it is to be alive. And I honor you, and I want you to know this. I honor you for showing up for you, that you made it this far, that you've been making it through each day. Not everybody can say they did that. Not everybody has been able to make it this far. We're the chosen ones, if you want to say that. Now, will you choose yourself? Because when you choose yourself, you can be the leader and show others and set the example that if you choose yourself, others can do the same for themselves. And recognizing the other thing, addiction to this technology, I want you to be reminded of this. This is just a small window into life. It is not. It is not the bigger picture. When you see something that tugs at your heartstrings, that pulls you into like that erratic mind, irrational, when you become emotional, you become irrational. Anything that triggers you, especially on this device, question it. Sit with it. Journal about it. Get outside and turn it off. This is just such a small fragment of life. It is not the bigger picture. This is the distraction, people. This is all been engineered. This has been programmed into us. We don't need to be here. You want to see things crash, you get off this. And I say that for myself. I do the same thing. I'm no different than anybody else. I want to maintain connection. I want to be able to serve. But I also understand how much more important it is for me to walk out that door and walk my dog and to meet my neighbors, to have real life interaction, to engage with real people, with humans to humans. That's what humanity's about. When you feel overwhelmed, whether it be through information, fear of missing out, or technology, that puts you in what we call a cold depression. And most people are suffering more so from this than they are from just being. So living life through this lens has taken us away from life. That's the biggest distraction we have right now. That's the biggest virus, is not being fully present to life and living it through a screen, living it through social media. This isn't who I am. This is just me. Well, I mean, this is technology, but it's me communicating through it. It's not the whole picture of me. You're just getting a small glimpse. I love these types of conversations. This is how I like to be. I prefer it in one-on-one interactions. But this is how I get my message out, and this is the only way I know. But I do it out there too. So how are you serving? And how can you better serve? Most important thing you could ever do is get involved locally. Turn off the TV. That stuff going on out there, essentially, you have to sit with. It doesn't affect you in here. Only if you allow it entry, you give it permission, you give it your power. It's out there. Always has been. News has only been there to entertain you. News has only been there to suck you in and keep you. Same thing with all the technology. So I hope you're all navigating these times with humble gratitude and awareness and self-care. Nurture yourself. Humble yourself. You're more important than you realize. Look in the mirror. Yeah, lots of love. Have an amazing evening. Therapy Thursday. This is your therapy for today. I love you very much. See you on the flip.